All students are welcome to join, but memberships are open to students who have completed 12 college credit hours, can maintain a 3.25 GPA or higher, have completed a college level psychology course with a grade B or higher, but the AP psychology test does not count towards your eligibility. Sorry. The fees and friends of Psi Beta, if you want to become if you want to be an official National Honor Society member, you must pay your dues, which is a once in a lifetime 55 payment, and you never have to pay it again. But if you want to not have to pay the fees, but you want to join Psi Beta, you can join as friends of Psi Beta, but you cannot serve as committee members, or you can serve as committee members, you just cannot serve as a chair and officer. Why should you become a member? Collin College's chapter of Psi Beta is a national award-winning honor society, and you get eligibility to engage in your passions such as service or research. You get to increase your competitiveness for transfer and graduate schools, and some students have gone on to prestigious schools, including one who's currently studying schizophrenia in grad school. He will be speaking in November, so I would definitely recommend going to that. And if you're still not impressed, here's some other things that we do. We get to meet service animals. Yay! There's also the research team. They are currently coordinated by Dr. Sharon Eves, Professor Ingeborg Symes, and accompanied by some of our Psi Beta members, and some of them are officers. And this March, our research team will be heading to SWAPA in Frisco to present their research. The research team goes to conferences, they get to present their research, and all expenses are paid for by the college. And you get to connect with distinguished speakers such as other professors, therapists, community advocates, partner universities. For example, Dr. David Buss is a good example. We forge relationships with Psi Chi, SWAPA conference collaborations with students from the University of Arkansas. We have won a national award for all the work that we have done, including building bonds, and just recently we won the 2025 Chapter Excellence Award. We also serve our community. And if you're interested in joining, you can use the QR code. I will leave that up for a little bit if you want to take a picture or if you want to scan it. Unless you're already a part of Psi Beta, don't even worry about it. Some upcoming events include today, where we will be doing Beyond the Classroom, what out of school time reveals about adolescent development. October 10th will be the Road to Private Practice, which will be at the Frisco campus and on Zoom. And November 21st, we'll be exploring internal accuracy in schizophrenia and navigating the first year of graduate school, and that will be in McKinney. If you want to know more about these events and be updated, you can check the Cougar Connect. I usually post all the events and if they're updated and whatnot. You can also text at Psi Beta CC to 81010 to get updates live time. And you can also follow us on all of our socials. So thank you so much for coming. And if you have any questions, feel free to talk to me after the meeting. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Professor Kaiser. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. We have a very exciting presentation and presenter today. We have Nina Golub, who is in her 4th year in the Psych Sciences PhD program at UT Dallas, and she's going to be sharing her research on adolescent development. So welcome, Nina. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm a 4th year PhD student at UT Dallas, as Samantha just said. A little bit about me. I don't mind to be interrupted. I don't mind skipping all the slides and I see people bored. So feel free to ask some questions if you have as I'm talking. So a little more about me and why am I qualified to get this talk. So I got my bachelor's in applied psychology. During my honors thesis is when I had a real exposure to research. So in this, it's like a 3-year program. By the end of the 1st year is when you have to start thinking about a research question. The 2nd year is when you have to collect data. And the 3rd year is when you have to analyze and write up a thesis. So it's like, as a freshman in college, slightly edgy, right out of high school, you're thinking about a lot of things. What got me curious was boredom. Why are so many students seeking stimulation in different kinds of activities? Um, so that's where I started forming my research question. It talked about boredom in life and do we have meaning in life as an underlying factor for boredom? So I had collected data over like 200 undergraduate students, used SPSS for analysis. This was my first time turning a curious question into a real world study. Um, During my bachelor's, I also was a summer intern. First, I interned as a special educator for children with special needs, where we had all these creative ways of teaching children math and science. During this internship is when I saw how having a support from your parents, having a proper routine for your child, coming on time, having predictability and stability for your child was important. And that's what got me a little like interested in family psychology, and also like the time span of adolescence. Next, I was a research intern at this place called Mia Life. This was actually a corporate exposure for me. That's where we were actually trying to develop a tool to understand a trait called hardiness in employees. Hardiness can be defined as what makes employees tough. So we had a bunch of like statistical stuff what we were doing, and we created a psychometric analysis, and that's where I knew like, okay, maybe I'm more interested in research and not like the corporate as such. And then because of my interest in adolescents and family psychology, I decided to get a master's, decided that, okay, I want to hone my skills a little more. So I got my master's. It was sadly during the pandemic, so not a lot of like on practicum training. But again, I did have a master's thesis that was mainly looking into mindful parenting and emotion regulation in children. Mindful parenting can be defined as parents who are in tune with their emotions, are able to understand what their child is feeling at the moment, and are able to respond in real time. So my hypothesis here was parents who are mindful in their parenting will have children who use more adaptive or healthier emotion regulation strategies. Um, this study was like a mixed method study. So I did interviews with children trying to understand their emotion regulation. Because my sample was like 5 years to 9 years, there were kids who didn't know how to name their emotions. So an interview method is something that I thought would be more useful so that I could name it for them. And for parents, we had like a mindfulness in parenting question. It was a simple correlational study, but I got to, work with data as well as qualitative data. That is the interviews. So that got me even more interested in family psychology, the complex relationships that come with parent and children. And that's when I decided, okay, like I want to dive deeper into research, and this is what I want to do. I started applying for PhD programs. Um, I reached out to a bunch of professors whose research interests matched mine. And I ended up joining the Family Research Lab at UT Dallas. Dr. Jackie Nelson is my mentor. We had like a really good personality and research fit. It was like a click at the moment. And that's when I started doing my after school research, which I'll be talking about more. We also have other lab projects, which I'm happy to talk about if we have questions. And yeah, I'm on my track to get a PhD hopefully soon. Let's talk about after school research. Okay. So I want you all to think about, how learning is happening in a classroom, but there are ways that learning happens outside of a classroom. There are 3 out of 4 adolescents, and every 3 out of 4 adolescents are enrolled in some sort of organized after-school activity on a school campus. Out of school time is what we're defining as time spent after the school's over, but on a school campus and is supervised by a faculty member, by a coach, or some other supervisor. It includes a host of activities such as a sports team, music groups, could be volunteering groups, religious activities that happen on campus, a lot of variety here. And parents and researchers are really interested in how this time is actually spent, what is happening here. It's also a way for parents to just know that you're not in trouble because it's a supervised activity and it's on a campus, but it does host a lot of benefits for children. Why is it such a big deal? When I was getting my master's, I got my master's in clinical psychology, and clinical psychology is something that focuses on a disease model. That is, when a problem's occurred, what are you doing? That's when I realized that I perhaps want to be on a more preventative side. And that's where I found positive psychology. Positive psychology basically is giving a child a host of positive emotions in the child's toolkit. So and these positive emotions can be built upon, they can be broadened, and they can be kept in the child's toolkit. So whenever a problem occurs, they have something to act as a buffer. There is a growing interest and need for a positive youth development context. This is basically what an after-school activity offers. It's also a transition period for adolescents when they are, part of a after-school activity, especially grade 6 onwards. There is a lot going on in this developmental period. Self-concept is being developed, there are bodily changes happening, you're forming your peer network, you're finding a sense of belonging. There's lots and lots happening there. So it's good to have, to give students and adolescents a support network right from the beginning. Out-of-school activities also host a lot of opportunities for learning new skills. You're learning how to play an instrument, you're learning how to code, you're mastering a sport. So a lot of skills that can be useful for later life. You're learning to be part of a tribe. You're a valued member of a group, which is very, very fundamental, especially for adolescents. And lastly, they have a protective role. Like I said, you're in a supervised program on a school campus. You're not doing unsupervised activities, which could be certain risky behaviors, downsicky behaviors, which might put children at risk. Also, a recent World Bank report has stated that social emotional skills are the top skills in demand, even more than technical skills. And after school activities are helping you build these social emotional skills. Talking about social emotional skills, after school activities are seen as a social skills supercharger. Your social skills are really getting honed here. Why? Firstly, because you're exploring different roles. Maybe you're a team captain, maybe you're a lead in a school play, you're someone who's organizing a study group. So you're trying to figure out who you are in different roles. You're exploring them. You're also learning about social norms, certain unwritten, unspecified ways of social interaction. You're learning how to cooperate with your team members, how to adjust to their needs, and also how to communicate what you want effectively with your team. You're also connecting with different people in that context. You're building positive relationship with mentors, with your own peer network. You're also connecting with students or friends who you probably wouldn't have connected with in a classroom. But the kicker here is that the quality of these programs is really what matters. There are a lot of activities here, but you're able to only get a whole range of benefits if these programs are of a good quality. It's sort of seeing it as a video game with a lot of bugs. You're getting the experience, but it's not a productive experience as such. So this is where my research question comes in. I view this sort of like a chicken or an egg problem in developmental psychology in the after-school context. That we know that these child outcomes, that is being good in your social skills, are poor if the program itself is of a poor quality. But what if children are already coming into these programs with higher social skills? It could be because of family factors, it could be genetics, or just someone who's naturally good at social skills. And what if you're coming into these programs with higher social skills, so you're getting more quality experiences? So what is the first thing here? Is it the quality of the program that matters, or is it the child already having a certain level of social emotional skills? So the aim of the study was to explore if the quality of out of school time is related to social skills, or do high social skills lead to high quality experiences in these activities? My study included a sample of 996 families from the NICHD study of early childhood and youth developmental archival study. It's a longitudinal study that was spanned over 20 years. It's something that we have access to in our labs. And here I'm looking at only 6th grade and 9th grade children. The sample demographics are as follows. Gender was quite the same, ethnicity predominantly white. The family socioeconomic status was again predominantly middle class. The measures that we used for this study was quality of out of school experiences, which is basically asking questions like, do I like the activity? Is the coach helping me learn new skills in this activity? Am I getting along with others in this activity? These are mainly asked to the children. And I think this is a really key aspect of the study because a lot of studies haven't really looked at what the children feel. It's mainly like the parent reported or teacher reported feel. So it's nice to have something what the children are thinking about. For social skills, sadly, we only had like mother reports, which also I think is pretty nice if we had a report from mothers. So they reported on certain key aspects of what they think about their child. It includes questions like, does a child help you with household tasks without being told, which shows initiative taking? Does a child participate in organized activities such as sports or clubs? Does a child volunteer to help family members with tasks? So this was measured using the social skills rating system, and this was reported by the mothers. The results, I'm not going to get too technical here, but as you can see, I'm going to have to get out of the phone. That's okay. So here you can see good quality out of school experiences lead to higher social skills. This is something that is already supported by a lot of teachers. And yes, and that's why after school activities are still running. Because these after school activities help improve social skills. But my research is testing the other direction, that is, children who are already high on social skills tend to gain more quality experiences. So when you think about it in an after school context, and if you look at peer dynamics happening here, children who tend to be higher on social skills sometimes tend to overpower other kids. There is, not everyone gets the same kind of benefits here. And that direction of effect is actually stronger. So conclusion here for this study is that yes, we find evidence for bidirectionality. Quality experiences lead to higher social skills, and higher social skills do lead to good quality experiences. But what the takeaway message here is that coaches, teachers, supervisors in these programs need to be mindful that children with higher social skills are the ones that are getting more benefits here. So we need to see how we can elicit good quality experiences and experience to all kinds of children. Also, it's a good check to ensure the effectiveness and have a quality check on these programs. They've been running for so many years, so how can we take the most or make the most out of these activities? Where do I see myself going with this study? This was like a main framework for my dissertation. But in my dissertation, I'm also planning to look at certain contextual and individual factors in these associations. When I talk about contextual factors, I'm talking about certain things that are happening in a child's environment that include parent-child relationship, whether the parent is granting autonomy to the kid. For example, a child who goes into an activity by their own, whereas they're forced by their parent, or the parent is deciding what sort of activity is the child going in. When you have more say in what kind of activity you're going in, perhaps you're able to develop more independence, you're able to feel more confident, because of which you're able to have higher social skills and gain more quality experiences. That's something I want to test. When I talk about individual factors, I'm talking about what's happening inside the individual themselves. One variable that I think of is a child's optimism, a belief that good things will happen in your life. If you're an individual who is optimistic, perhaps you have a higher sense of belongingness and purpose, which boosts your ability to make more friends in a particular after school activity, perhaps making you more social, and then again getting more quality experiences. So what's really going on in here? This is where I hope to go. I will be testing out these directions soon in my dissertation, along with a bunch of other things. Yeah, that's pretty much about my research. Thank you. And do we have any other questions or anything you want me to clarify or emphasize on?
I'm asking Zoom if they have questions.
Yes. This study, though we do have like a large, yeah, even though we have a large sample size, I would say we were still limited by, oh, do we have a question? Okay. We were still limited by certain factors. Firstly, I'm just looking at 6th and 9th grade. Though developmentally it's an appropriate time, I wish if I had like a third time point, I would be able to see what change is actually happening more instead of just like one, I think two changes. These activities tend to differ with the kind of socioeconomic status the family is in. Because are you able to afford these activities? Do you have parents that can drop you to these activities? All that needs to be taken into consideration. We did put in socioeconomic status as one of our controls, and we found out that it does differ. It also differs with single parent households versus two parent households. So children who were in two parent households tend to participate more in these activities. Also, this study, the data was began in like the 1990s and went to 2010. So certain technology advancements that have happened, this data has not been able to gather certain cultural shifts, certain policy changes. We've not been able to look at that.
I do have a question
Yeah.
for you. Did you, and you may have already talked about this, and I was wondering in the chat.
Yeah.
Did you look at like the types of extracurriculars? Like, were they all athletic?
That's a really good question. Okay, so with the type of activity, sadly, this database did not have information on what kind of activity were they in. Were they in like a sports club or like a homework club? You'd imagine a sports club to be more social than like a homework club. So sadly, I just did not have data on that. But yeah, it was mainly data on does a child participate in this activity, and if they do, how many? So the most I can see with this data is like the intensity of the activity.
Okay.
That is also a limitation. Yeah.
I was wondering, what about safety of the intensity? Is there like a test about that and how effective?
That's a good.
Like social skills.
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, my sample only included children who participated in an activity. It did not include children who were not part of any activity.
Okay.
But that's something that I guess future studies could look at, like a comparison between homeschool children versus children who were on a campus.
I have a question in the chat that sort of you addressed just then.
Yeah.
Are you implying through your research that children or adolescents who participate more in these activities tend to perform more or better than those who don't?
Can you say that again?
So the adolescents who participate in a greater number of activities, they perform better, or the outcome that you were looking at was social skills?
Yeah. So yes, there is some research that's looking at intensity, basically what we were discussing right now, that is the number of activities that they're taking part in. My study does not cater to intensity. I was mainly looking at the quality of the experience, but I can cite or I can send some studies that are looking at intensity, and then we can see what their results are.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much, Nia. This is very interesting research and very interesting to see kind of how we'll move forward with this data in this new kind of tech time, and maybe there's different limitations there too. But thank you all for coming, and thank you, Nia, for presenting your research. I appreciate everybody's time, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.